Okay, we are live. Another session. Things to talk about, things not to talk about. We really could talk about anything today. And so you get online, let me know if you can hear me, stuff like that. Oh, that seems redundant, right? All right, if you're online, let me know if you can hear me and stuff, I don't know if it's been a short week or a long week. Can't really tell just yet. I know a productive week. Usually some of the things I prepare did not get prepared, so maybe it was a short week. But if you're online, any questions or anything about anything, I tried on this class. I tried not to come with an agenda. There are particular things I want to tackle. I want to review and start. When we get more students, when you all start filing in and stuff. Right now, we don't have any students in the classroom either. I think it's went back to hot. When it gets hot, sometimes you get students, sometimes you don't, right? When it's expected to rain, you don't always get students, so I think it's kind of a combination. So if you're online, let me know. Let me know if you build it. Let me know what's up. A couple of questions I'll answer from the emails. Some decent questions. This is actually a week where I never got around to the emails that new emails that students sent me, so I'm a little bit behind. First time in a long time because a lot of work to do. Looking over them now. Okay. Yeah, so let me know. I'll just be dropping some things here in the comments, my email address and things like that, so you can go to where can you go to get. I wrote a build called the Kings at Ease, inspired by the Nas album and stuff, just using it as a riff for an understanding though. So, some people were like, oh, well, this article might have been or isn't or wasn't what I was looking for, whether it was useful or not to me. It isn't, and it wasn't a review of Nas's King's Disease album. I did a Power Right show just this week, Monday, breaking down a lot of the perspective about that album. So, if you're interested in that, that's in the Power Right show. Episode 73. episode 73 on S Street Media. S as in Scholes Street. S Street Media. So see, there's a few people, but they're silent. So I'm just gonna assume and just riff here. People that are silent, though. Let's see how we go. Usually the chat, I've been spoiled. Usually the chat is fast to get people in, but it's not. A lot of people don't know that what I would normally be doing in the classroom when the class is empty is doing my own work. Studying, always reading or writing in my journal. Never really anything else. I try not to stray away from anything that isn't building something crucial that could also be relevant to the classroom and stuff. Not something too creative that drifts me off. You know what I mean? Even though there's a couple of things. Supreme freedom. I was just saying that peace to God. I was just saying that I haven't answered all of the emails. I haven't answered all the emails, but I did read your build on how you see your name and stuff. Very interesting. Very interesting. I got a lot out of that. Always interested in how people name themselves. If they change their name, it's like a new journey that they're gonna go on. A new perspective on a journey. However you want to look at it, though. But I intend to email you back with some of my specific thoughts and stuff. I don't want to put that out there like that. And plus, I read it a while ago. I read it I think in the weekend. So my specific ideas, I didn't get to throw them all out there. But it's been a busy week. It's been a busy week. And I talk a lot about having to deal with this now. Deal with this. I said deal with this. You see how I said that? To have this knowledge of self a long time. You know what I mean? Oh, that's peace, God. I appreciate that. Having this knowledge of self a long time, years and years, how it affects you, how it affects the people that you love, how it affects the way that you talk and everything like that. This stuff is really for the long haul. You know what I mean? There'll be no one particular event. There'll be no one particular thing. There'll be changes that go along the way. There'll be things that others won't understand, right? So a lot of the part about being a 5% is how comfortable you are with being misunderstood. Sounds crazy, right? How comfortable are you with being misunderstood? See? A lot of the ancient texts speak about, especially in the East, speak about striving. And on a positive note, like the negative is to be striving. They often called it, in the Confucius ways, called it the way of the mean was the righteous way. But they call in the translation, this is not necessarily the words they may have used, but the way of the mean. Right? Because way of the mean. That's the righteous way. The way they put it in many of the Confucian analects and the translations. And that way of the mean, the righteous person that is not striving, not trying to be always learning, always adapting, the person that is actually seeking to be that. Excuse me. The person that's seeking to be that, so that they could be labeled that, is actually translated as the mean man. I find that interesting. You know what I mean? I've always found that intriguing. You know what I mean? So you can, the closer in the East, in the Eastern perspective, the closer that you attach yourself to a truth, the more distant you are from that truth. You see? And it's about the idea of equanimity. You see? But see, we have danger of not being equanimous, though, when we deal with knowledge of self, because part of I got a little bit of the sniffles because I bleached up this table here, and after I bleached it up, I think it cleansed everything, including my nasals. But when you deal with this knowledge of self, right, and you have it in a certain way. How are you dealing with it? Does everyone have to deal with it? Are you teaching so that way you can have a more comfortable environment? Um, are you comfortable that people don't understand you? And see what I mean by that is this, right? Because we're supposed to be understood. We keep it simple, stupid, right? Kiss, we keep it simple, stupid, all that kind of stuff. We teach the babies is the phrase and stuff, right? So we keep it simple and all that kind of stuff. But the truth is that what becomes misunderstood is a way of life that people can't accept because they are embraced into theirs. You know what I mean? So they cannot question theirs. See? And the difference is that would keep us from being a mean man, or like, let's say, the way of God, the way of self, as opposed to God man, right? I'm trying to juxtapose the in parallel the concepts here, right? The Confucian concepts. Every time that we say that we're the true and living God, we're always in a reality of questioning it, in a reality of challenging it. You see? And a lot of times, though, even those that truly live that, what happens is that their normal discourse ends up being challenging. You know what I mean? We offer new perspectives, but we also challenge the perspectives, right? We also understand that there could be people that live in the wrong, but we also expect us to be wrong, right? We expect that what we think we might know might not be true, right? It's the nature of, equanimity, right? In those Eastern teachings, those fit with this knowledge of self, right? Right. But yeah, if you have any questions or builds, throw them at me. I don't know if the brother that was on here, there was a brother named Lord Takimala. I actually had confused some of the things he said. I might say it again though, but says he got wise you and supreme freedom here. He had said that somebody had introduced themselves as blank blank Allah. He's an elder or whatever, like somebody know. So, for example, he had introduced himself. Hey, my name is Sunez Allah, coming in the name of Almighty Allah, right? And I thought about that for a while because that's like one of the greatest redundancies I've ever heard. You know, it also has the nature of making a big A and a little a. Yeah, people make a big J and a little J, which really defeats the point of all this stuff. You know, we have a really way of self-defeating stuff. You know what I mean? Taking ourselves out of the equation, though, making it sensible that we can't uh, find the solution to the entire equation. You see? And that's what I mean by equanimity. Are you comfortable with not being able to solve the equation? It's all mathematics, though. Are you okay with not being able to solve every problem? So there has to be a comfort in that, right? Or else your nature will be to excuse and to make explanation for things. No, I'm speaking very abstract here. I had a very interesting day. Very interesting day. Right? Most of my perspectives tonight will probably be skewed because of what usually, I've noticed that there's we talk about revolution, we talk about ideas of revolution, but as in the times that we're in, though, the circumstances that cause revolution are now every person's daily thought, every person's daily reality. When you broadcast things and everyone gets to see the oppression daily, what happens is that people can forget about it, they can continue on their day. But the reality is that now they assume that they live the life of the revolutionary, because the reality of the revolutionary is now consistently part of their daily stress, part of their daily reality. So we have a whole bunch of people now, much of the world, much a larger percentage of our people, meaning a vast chunk of the 85, and in this case 85, we're talking about people that wouldn't engage in anything revolutionary, who are now living the stress and dealing with the stressors of the revolution, right? They can no longer turn much of a blind eye. It becomes difficult, right? Piece of G1. Yeah, Rakim says, and Nas Allah, there's nothing I can't solve. 360 degrees. That's right, yeah. You know? But this idea, Miss, G1, that it becomes simpler. That people wouldn't find a glass ceiling even as there's true and every God is false. So like, to me, if I said I come in the I don't even know how to say this. It's very awkward. If I said my name is Sunez Allah, in the name of Almighty Allah, it's almost like you gave yourself a conscript for failure, though. Like you're a minion and just a cog, So whatever you were doing, though, it doesn't have to be completed. I find that interesting, intriguing. With this knowledge of self, and I've seen over the years, all these years, that I've seen many people have the ingenious ways of making this knowledge a mystery. It's intriguing, intriguing, right? And this is giving updates on Plus lessons. If you were interested in the health protocol, I did update the health protocol sheet. One thing that I updated in the health protocol sheet, though, is a reminder that there are two perspectives of health: physical health, the inner and the outer. And the health protocol, we're mainly talking about the inner, the foods that you take in and things. But there's also and now much more easier to do the health of the outer. What type of shampoos you use, what type of soap you use, lotions, creams, whatever it is, that you use on your outer. I don't think I made a whole protocol out of it. You know what I mean? Make a whole protocol out of it, but if I was thinking, what would be the first step in your outer protocol, right? Because you have what goes on your body, and then what else? What else is going from the outside in, though, that isn't diet? And that would be the air you breathe. So how you protect your air, you know what I mean? Or how you change your air so that way at least the particular smells are under your control, the mentality of it. You know what I mean? You know, what do you use and stuff? You know what I mean? Um, yeah, you know, and Supreme Freedom, you said keep it simple, teach it real. Why mystify it? You know, that's the whole thing. It's not being mystified. I don't think it's being mystified purposely. The truth is that's being mystified by default, you know, by people's nature, right? You know, we live lives, and there are things that we find that we can do very well and things that we can't do very well. And the truth is that in this life, so what happens is that what also blocks people is that the things that they do very well, they may not be able to do. You know what I mean? Right? Isn't that the life of many an artist of all types, right? When you have that type of blockage, right? Um, a lot of the answers start coming from outside yourself, you know, and that's just the way you. This is when I always tell students these three major things to always be aware of, and I say that the third is to bathe yourself constantly in belief. Um, the belief is that the belief is something real. You know what I mean? The belief is something to bathe yourself of, to constantly notice that even though I say I'm the true and living God, I might not be, you know what I mean, you know, living it out like that. You know, it might be the things I still might be making questions for some. You know what I mean? Right? Be very careful the assumptions of things. You know, be very careful that we have a lot of language, a lot of dialect. You know, language and dialect did not make a book. Right? It's how they interact with each other. Right? It's how they engage. You know what I mean? What I'm saying is don't assume. Don't assume. Right? All of us have to take note of how we might demystify things, how we might mystify things. You know what I mean? Right? It's interesting. Yeah, that's peace, G1. That's peace. That's today's degree in the 1 to 40 is a degree I never really liked. Um, I'm not a fan of religion, so the degrees that sound biblical, I hate them. You know, I don't like all of them. I don't like it. But if we break it down to the nature of how it's written, one of the most important things in today's degree is the idea of witness. You know, witness. And in 120, witness of prophecy is very crucial. You know what I mean? It's a real important concept. You know, the witnessing of prophecy, very important. You know, very important, right? So we do like, what's the understanding that you could get out of that degree? You know what I mean? That there are witnesses. You know, the witnesses. You know, right? Witness to things. Right? What was the mentality of those who witnessed? Right? This is really why when we study history, the written word is so crucial because they have the witness of those that were there. You know what I mean? You can have the artifact, but you don't always know the whole story, right? It's conscious music too, though. You know what I mean? I always talk about in music though the point of contact, right? And for those that were there for when something came out, um, how it impacted, knowing its development, seeing it, it's a different perspective, right? But yeah, as we build here, you know, I know I'm being very abstract here, you know. So if there's anything you want me to get more concrete on, you know, just let me know. You know, today feels abstract. You know, right? Yeah. So I would think this, right? Since I protocol, and I know I'm going to a lot of different things. So we refine it. You guys throw your builds, these mathematics or questions, and we go through some more things. And the thing about the digital classroom is that I usually spend time asking students though about what they're thinking. You know, I don't have students in the classroom today. Um, I'm not going to say that they're not going to show up, but sometimes you get a feeling, right? I've been here a long time, you know. But I usually would go around asking particular questions to get certain things out of the student to see how they see certain things, you know, what they're thinking, their mentality, the experiences they've had, not just in the last week, but you know, since I last saw them. So all of that would help develop the particular classroom session that we would have. This is a little different now, so it's a lot, you know. Um, as a teacher, it's easier to get out of your own head and stuff like that. There's a lot of things I could say right now, but I don't like to build just with the things that I think ought to be taught. You know what I mean? Okay, let me open some more materials here. Maybe open some plus lessons. We go through some. I have a lot. Like I said, if you have any questions, let me know. Let me know. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. Yeah, you know what's interesting is that I do have a lot of thoughts on the board, the NBA, um, this revolution in general, and that's got to be a topic that we deal with because we're in the middle of revolution. Like I was saying before, revolution is now becoming part of the daily stressors, the 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 realities that made the few that become revolutionary and become a daily reality are now daily stressors for the whole populace, right? And that's something that's intriguing to me. You know, it's something that's intriguing to me. The truth is that in our education, you know what I'm saying? Um, in our education, it's important that we know about the immediate histories of certain areas, right? So let's say for the student, that's for any student, right? But let's say just to make it more concrete, student comes into the classroom here in Allah School in Mecca. Maybe he comes from a Latin American country. He's got at least three routes. So they're historical routes that become crucial, right? He's got the ancient route, father civilization route. We'll call it the father civilization route. He has the added route of his own immediate history. Right? Let's say he's Ecuadorian, right? You got to go through Ecuador and you know, read particular books about the literature of his people, the oppressions that they face, their indigenous history, their legacy and whatnot. Be familiar with it. Their interactions with the rest of the populace, all those kind of things, right? Then one particular aspect of history that most people don't notice because they usually have this the same as the their lineage history is an African American history, right? So most people, we assume that get this knowledge of self are African American, so it kind of merges with their lineage history. Now, the history of all original peoples and that lineages and different routes of all the original peoples ought to be supplemental for everybody. Every God on earth that gets knowledge of self, they should always be studying different cultures. Most of the clashes that we're going through is because people don't know anything about the cultures of other people. So they assume that the 9,000 miles that have to be swam by you or the people that come from where you're from is the same as other people. That the ignorances that you have are the same ignorances or founded the same way as yours, right? Some people can look in the mirror and that ought to be the answer. Some people have to look deeper, right? It's not just phenotypical, right? Not just how you look. Some people it is, you know. Some people's not. Some people's where they're at, and it makes sense. Now, the reason I say that you have to learn the added history is the history of this nation. You actually have to learn the African American history, but you have to learn a New York African American history. That's everybody. I don't care where you're at. If you're African American and you're getting this knowledge, like that's your immediate ethnicity, you got to know something about New York. But here's the thing. The same thing applies, though, for the particularities of revolution. You got to know the history of revolution. You got to know the perspectives. You got to know the redundancies, right? Just like you get this knowledge of self, you have to know how does a man deal with this every single day for years upon years upon years. And what we have, though, is often the current generation, one of the pitfalls of our generation, the young generation, is that they don't have a culture that has a habit of looking, that has in the culture the perspective of looking back. So in general, we could say that because we're in the West, there's always a general ingrained, not just dislike, but dismissal of the elder. Okay, not like the East though. No, not like other places in the East, right? Because of this dismissal of the elder, right? That's often in the westernized mindset that we end up growing up with, right? We tend not to know about that because, and a lot of this reality is because of hip hop, because of its heavy link with the knowledge of self. It's a heavy culture that deals with going back to look at things, but also in the name of pillaging, right? Pillaging the crates, looking back. But what happens is that what you find funny is that you find a great respect for the past, right? And let me tell you something, when you make a hit record using a crate and you make money, you start to have a little bit of love for the past, you know what I mean? Like, it's just natural. It's just natural. You know, have a love for the past, you know. When you create things and you have a love of history and it inspires your creations, you tend to have a great reverence for the past, right? And studying it. This generation doesn't have that, even if they do remnants of the culture, right? If they do, you know, the pop rap or whatever the hell it is that they do, right? I'm being an ass right now, but whatever it is they do, they think they is rhyme. They think they call rhyming. Whatever punching keys though that sound like the sound slops that become the collected meshes that garner applause and you know praise and replay. They didn't have to do with learning any kind of art. They don't have to learn they don't have to learn an instrument either. So what happens is now there's no mentoring either. So there's no mentoring There's no tendency to look at the past to get sparked for the future because there's no sampling culture, right? So if you really study, if you really link it up with us, there's a high reverence for the elder because of the nature of the mentoring nature. Learning it from an elder, learning it from one of us, and we give it to you, right? And that becomes the nature, right? So what happens is that as those generations that don't use the past so as a link, don't learn from the past, are more ingrained westernized mindset to correct the past, right? They are to correct the past, right? They're not adding on. The perspective is not adding on because remember, in the westernized mindset is a disrespect of the past. So the perspective is to correct what has gone along, right? We will update and destroy and topple all of the mistakes of the past, right? So what happens is that they don't see the nature, the language doesn't take into account all of the things that should have been learned. None of the lessons are passed down. The language that they develop, especially if they become educated, like you see in sociological language today, they're recategorizing or categorizing things. And then often their ultimate insight, I call it an insight, I don't know if I want to call it, I couldn't call it understanding, is to reinvent the wheel, of things, right? If we're still in this situation today, then that means that none of the stuff that they did worked, right? See, when I look at the past and I look at revolutionaries and I look at the gods and stuff, right? I don't look at the way of life that they lived and say it didn't work. I say that people got in the way and didn't work it. What they gave out, though, we didn't work it. They gave out blueprints and we didn't use the blueprints. That's usually often the case with a lot of the stuff. And that's why for you to be the young in the most supreme stage, the most elevated stage that the young could be is to be in a natural duality, right? Of preserving the past by showing and proving what has gone before, but also innovating. And a lot of times what we see is just an innovation that ends up reinventing the wheel. And usually it's not a wheel that's very round, you know? It's not a wheel that's very round, right? Now, as far as what I think, I saw, I gotta admit, I was looking at tweets and I saw Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and she had said that it's not a boycott, it's a strike, what the NBA players did. And technically, you lose a lot of the potency of what they did, or the potential of what they did, if you call it a boycott. They're the players, and they decided not to play. They are actually the league. They are the capital. They are it. They are the entire product. The basket's not a product, right? The stadium is not a product. The stadium is as much a product, really, if you think about it, as the cup is a product to the soda, right? It has its worth. It could be, it could be updated. It could be given a new look. It's not the product. The product is the soda, right? So it's not a boycott. It would have been a strike, right? And see, I don't want to judge anyone because we always quoting. Everybody wants to quote stuff. They always say more money, more problems, right? But the truth is that the NBA, the particular players, though, right? They're responsible for a lot of people, though. So they don't, and they have the right to justify things on if we don't go play, there's a big trickle down effect of people that won't get this, won't get that, be able to do this, the investments that we put out. In other words, the same old concept. A lot of people eating, right? Striking is a sacrifice. It's hard to do that. Did people go into the bubble saying that, did they even do that? Did they say, if they do something horrendous in the Floyd vein, we're absolutely not going to do this shit? No, I don't think that they did. No, I don't think that they did. No. I would guess that they didn't really make a decision like that. No. And I really think that in the back of most people's minds, you would think that at least America, all of these pigs would be on a little bit better behavior. Maybe just beat down people, keep them alive, billy club them, tase them, get them in the thing, but chill with killing blacks for a while, because there's a lot of eating. And the truth is, right, they go back to playing, though, that it's not really much of the strike is really a weak strike, you know what I mean? Like, didn't really do nothing. No, I keep it real. They play the games. I'm gonna go watch them. I was enjoying the playoffs, actually. You know what I mean? Right? I enjoy watching LeBron choke. I enjoy watching Kawhi. I was enjoying watching Jamal Murray and Donovan shoot it out. Right? So I was enjoying all that. You know what I mean? And then my favorite supplemental sports show needs fodder, right? So my Skip and Shannon show, I can't really watch it though. There's no fodder, right? Nothing happening for them to talk crap about, right? So I was enjoying it, of course, like everybody else. And they go back to play, I'll keep enjoying it, right? But what black powered capital has this much pull or has more pull than basketball? What could have more impact as far as like what a strike would look like? You know what I mean? And if we talk about strike, everyone sacrifices their livelihood in the strike, their monies, their way of living. And even though a lot of people eat and there'd be loss of money and, everybody would be hurt, even millionaires. But if there's anybody that could take an L, who would it be? Right? But what we learn here, though, is that maybe what we learn too, and we may not be able to prove this, is that these NBA players, maybe they already put the grips, though, that they're not ready for any of this stuff. And it had nothing to do with the race riots or any of this coming revolution. Who's to say that they realize that for all their monetary money, their investments were poor as far as like dealing with the revolution. In other words, living without the consistency of the gold mine that their talents, afford them, right? How much did they save? How much working capital do they have? You know what I'm saying? How many investments do they have that's going to still catch wreck, right? For the most part, you might be able to say that they ain't really all did that, you know? And the truth, though, when you think about it, that's not up to LeBron. That's not up to the superstars, the megastars, right? It's up to all the players. The players that aren't getting that much. You know what I mean? Players that get maybe they get paid like maybe 3-4 million, but they're stretching that million for a long family now, and you've got to stretch that into some kind of way to stretch that even beyond the years. It's a lot of life to live after like 35, right? Really playing for that, right? Revolution is not easy. So I don't fault anyone that doesn't engage fully in the revolutionary act. There's a revolutionary act. Prague has a lot of hell. There's a consistency in revolution. The revolution, for example, in Cuba wasn't just the taking over of Cuba. And that's why they said it's the revolution. Not 1959, but 1960, 61, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1970 through 1980. And then when that blockade gets serious, though, through the I forget the name they call the 90s, though, but they had a name for the 90s, though. It was really dry, really, really difficult in the 90s in Cuba. Oh, shit. I'm forgetting the name. But all of that is the revolution, right? So how difficult is that? You know what I mean? How much consistency you need in that? Because I mentioned Cuba because a lot of the Cuban people respect the revolution, but they have to concede that they are not going to be a part of that anymore. The bureaucracy has destroyed the revolution, other things, the blockade. We can't keep it up. And the truth is, the revolution eventually recruits the entire populace. The awkwardness about America, right, is that everyone that thinks they're revolutionary, they're not revolutionary. No, they're not revolutionary. What's revolutionary is you deciding how you would handle the whole populace. In other words, are you willing to take the decisions, though, that help many and most and hurt a lot of people? How many chunks of the population are you willing to have hurt? And talk about Cuba. They took it over and they redistributed the land. But that means that people that own that land, they may not have been blood-sucking millionaires and things like that. They got their property taken too. And they had to share chunks of things that, man, other people ain't had nothing to do with. Right? So how does that affect everybody? Right? So it's got to be one consensus, you know? Let me see some of these comments y'all make. Right? The Lakers and another team are holding out. Yeah, I heard it was the Lakers and the Clippers, but from what I'm seeing from reports, they're all going to go back. Calm Islami, you said NBA already losing money because of low ratings. The players refuse to play. The owners can void the negotiated CBA. The players will stand to lose a lot of money going forward. So I don't know. Maybe some lower players were eager to strike. Yeah. Supreme Freedom, you said, yeah, lower tier players need that bread because they don't got $1 million contracts, endorsements. Even though in today's age, thanks to Jordan, not anybody else, not LeBron, nobody. A lot of scrubs got big contracts. You know what I mean? A lot of people talk about the revolution, but when we think about what could make, if they absolutely had to strike and say, no, we're not playing. That's a strike. That's not a boycott. Okay. They're the product of how you boycott yourself. You know what I mean? Sounds so awkward though. We're not going to play though. So we're boycotting ourselves. We're boycotting our product. Like, you see how there's a separation between them and then the play? Like, it made it like their own property. That's interesting. Interesting. You know? But I don't think that the thrust of revolution can be put on that. You know what I'm saying? On the players or into that. Although, if we were to say who would be most ready for that, maybe so. Maybe they could be the most ready for it. Peace 793rd. Self-magnetic. Peace to God. And peace to the young God. Happy born day to the young God. Self-magnetic's young God. Peace to the God. You know what I mean? Love seeing the young God grow and get strong and vital. You know what I mean? We'll be looking at him for answers, to all this kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Well, he could add on though, right? But no doubt, submagnetic. You know what's interesting is that we talk about revolution, and I would say this though. The way of life of being a God is already revolutionary because we go against the entire status quo. Okay? And if you look at the terminology, the empowering, the way the populace is realigning itself, they're they're building a pseudo revolutionary class that is realigning the entire freedoms of different people by making many categories, right? Many categories of oppression by labeling new things as oppression, other things, people, all different types of people, right? The LGBTQIA and all that kind of stuff, right? All types of new different people that are oppressed, right? And equalizing certain things, you know what I mean, that aren't really equal. They're not really equal, you know what I mean? And a lot of that comes at the hands, though, of the perspective of the family, right? Man, woman, and child no longer is an assumption of being the viable option. There was something else. The nature of revolution, all these things. These are all things that are changing perspective. You know what I mean? So when we think about that, the revolution is already being used as a code, and like I said, this is what happens when the conditions that cause revolution now become known to the whole populace, But what change would people really make? What changes would they really make? This is what's interesting. Again, I wouldn't look to basketball players for that. You know what I'm saying? I definitely wouldn't look to basketball players for that. I would look to them to be mouthpieces for ideas and stuff, but not anything else, See, the thing is, there's only one type of revolution that could be secure in a result. And everybody tries to say these different things, but there's only one way of revolution that secures a result in making other people do something. Okay? There's only one. There's only one way. Okay? Everyone talks about all these different ways, and we do all these different ways, and we engage peacefully and all that kind of stuff. There's only one guaranteed way that you make other people do as you see to be right and honorable and just, and that's you serve justice. You physically make people do it. There's no other revolution. I mean, there's no other revolution. It's the only one. It's the only one that's guaranteed. You could say it's monetarily, but the truth is that we don't control the means of production. So that's basic That's basic communism. Communist manifesto. We don't own the means of production. What people forget, though, is that the means of production also includes the means and the valuation of money. Not just making more money, like just build it out, but the way the money is valued. You see? So technically, no matter how much money we get, it is still based on a value that is attributed to what, is said that we have. What if the things that we had, all of the assets and all that was now all of a sudden of less value? Less value just because they said so. They said so. That's what it is. They said so. God damn it. They said so. Wouldn't that be something? Right? So now the Father said that we engage with the society, right? So a lot of that contradicts what the revolution that I'm talking about. The reason is because it contradicts, but it doesn't conflict. Because the Father found the other revolution. There's the revolution of making people do stuff. In many respects, right? In many respects, right? We talk about Cuba just to keep it physical, like a real actual thing. Fidel took over physically, and then causes the revolution. Physically takes over, right? That's what I'm talking about. The Father doesn't take over, though. He teaches the most challenging, the most different idea, concept that hasn't been taught, the concept that could change everything, the concept that, if seen, would revolutionize everything, the knowledge of self. So you could get engaged in society, you could be peaceful and everything. But the nature of what everything actually is changes everything. Changes people from the perspective of living things that they think they are. See? That's how you know that a revolution isn't really taking place in the cipher, when the cipher is really advocating for what people think about how things ought to be. That is their identity, right? What they think they are, not what they actually are. And we know because it could fluctuate. What they think they ought to have, but they don't really know for certain, though, right? They don't really know what they would do with it. They don't really know how a society would run, what they would run, how they would run it. You see? So in a lot of ways, right, even the American themselves, the original man, original people in America, black, brown, yellow, citizen, not citizen, immigrant, different ethnicities, right? The original people all stuck and mired, though, in this United States of America. They don't have a generally united idea of how they would re-engage society. So they are as lost as all of the people, all of the great ones that fought the revolution along with Toussaint Louverture. They don't know what society they would bring. See? We take over everything, then we really, really know what it feels like to be a baby. Right? The LT station, yeah, I was talking about your question. It led to a whole bunch of other stuff I was just riffing on. I ended up getting here in revolution. I don't think revolution will not be the topic, especially what we're dealing with. You know what I mean? Right? And I have a lot to say about that, I guess. There's only too much to say. Yeah, but Lord Takim, aka LT station, right? You were saying that somebody introduced themselves as their name blank Allah, and they said they come in the name of Almighty Allah. It's an awkward redundancy. It doesn't necessarily mean anything, but they might have just wanted to revere the Father a little bit extra. It does become a little religious, you know what I'm saying? So I definitely wouldn't advocate that. You know, all of the elders that taught me that were with the Father, though, wouldn't have want him to be obsessively revered that way, you know? Right? So that's what I have to say about that, you know? You pick their brain out, you know what I'm saying? You pick their brain. A lot of times you build with people, they come in a name, though, but there's a big glass ceiling on their head, you know what I mean? There's a lot of things that they can't do, but Almighty God, Allah, the Father, was able to do it. Not like me. I just build. Right? Come on, I've heard a lot of shit like that. You know what I mean? A lot of shit like that. Waste of space type talk, you know what I mean? Wasting a seat to parliament type talk, you know what I mean? Like, what's that about? Yeah, it's not a mystery as far as like might not have been a mystery god spook, but might have been referring to the Father. You know, the Father is that. You know what I'm saying? And that's not something new. I've heard that before. You know what I mean? People also give all types of superpowers and all that kind of shit to the Father and everything. You know? And it's not necessarily the case, you know. Right? Even I didn't know. I said not necessarily the case. You know? Even I give a little leeway to him having superpowers. You know what I mean? I wasn't there, right? I get to immortalize him in my own way, right? But that would be crazy. So revolution, though, are we really, each of us, though, in a revolutionary life, or we just live in a different lifestyle that's just a little bit conflicting to the people, you know? Different. You know what I'm saying? Different, right? You know, different, awkward to people, all that kind of stuff, right? Well, you know, if it's Rakim has a lot of mystery. You know, read his autobiography. As you mentioned that, in the 5% media site, I did do a piece on Rakim. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know where it would have been. I'm getting the link now, so that's what I'm doing. But Rakim was very mysterious in some things and everything like that. So I wrote a very long build about his book. You could check that out in that link there. You know what I mean? What would a revolution be, though? You know, understand some premise here, though. You know, understand some premise here, right? Understand that sometimes that not engaging in things doesn't mean that you're a revolutionary. You know, probably the biggest example of that is voting. You know what I mean? You don't have to engage in voting. You know what I mean? But a revolutionary would certainly engage in voting a few times just to understand the process and see the process. And also, they would have their own mentality of knowing that process and see how they would fix it. Because, you know, the more you study the electoral college and things like that, right? The thing about a democracy that's intriguing is that it's based on a series of checks and balances based on word is bonds. And that's why we see so much failure, right? That's why we see so much failure, right? Just like, for example, the electoral college is based on word is bond. You know, I'm going to advocate for that. You vote for the president and get enough votes, then who I said I would go for, I'm going to go for, right? Word is bond. Then people's not word is bond. People's word is not bond, right? So, oops, little fault in the system, right? But I think this, though, these are some things to note, right? What I don't like is like certain arguments that people go to that you have to apply to the rest of your life. And unless you applied it to the rest of your life, I don't want to hear that shit when it comes to things like voting and stuff. Voting is one thing. It's one act, you know? You vote. Doesn't change much. If you vote, though, you did something. You added on. Sometimes I advocate people voting because I want them to be in an active pursuit of engaging. And the truth is, a lot of us is the true and living God, but most of us though don't really know how to engage in society. You know what I mean? So we have no idea what the common man thinks. And understand that when you get a knowledge of self, that is a big problem that you will have. So what I'm saying again, when you get knowledge of self, you're not engaged with the reality of the common man sometimes. You're seeing everything from a distance, though, even while you're right in the center of things, because you have different framework. You have a way of thinking that is different. You know what I mean? All of that. So your perspectives are different. You know what I mean? And that's a big deal. So you don't know, you know what people will say, but you don't really know what they're engaging in to try to change things, to organize what they deal with on a daily basis. They may not be so engaged. And the people that are more engaged are really the people that aren't really teaching. So there's a lot of 5%ers that got this knowledge and they engage and they know the common man struggle. But it's that another loss. They don't really live out being the God in the cycle. So it's just a regular Joe. You know what I mean? They got the knowledge, but it's like this. Yeah, I'm in a name, but nobody really knows shit like that. You know what I mean? I don't engage in any of the culture. I don't quote anything. I don't try to quote. Um, I don't think in mathematics, right? But I got this knowledge. So how do you be the God living out this culture like you think mathematically? You work that way. Your mind works that way, but you also engage in the things of the common man, right? Some people know who you are. Some people don't. It's all relative. There's decisions. And that's why I say for you young in the lifestyle of being the God and the earth that ostracizes so easily just by way of thought, to learn how to engage. What is the voting system? How does it work though? You know? What emphasis does the common man place into it? How can it catapult you? You know? See, a lot of us talk about revolution, but a lot of us don't even engage though in this knowledge of self in a community effort, right? What percentage of people though actually go to the school and build, like doing things, not just go and hang out and build and like be part of the numbers, but actually do something, actually engage, like helping in the project for the community and stuff. Very little. And then people's way of life, like their trade, you know, may not be something that gives to people. You know what I'm saying? Like for example, I'm an author, I'm a writer. So by default, the product that I make, the work that I make is given to the populace. It is something to the populace. And that's why the artist, that's why the athlete, you know, the team athlete, especially, um, they get seen as an activist because they're automatically engaged with giving to the populace. Some people's jobs don't give to all of the populace. They just get the job done. You know what I mean? These are things to think about. Here's why. The arguments that we have not to engage actually distance us more. No, very few people say, I'm definitely not voting because it doesn't work. And then they think, listen, if I'm not voting, then what am I going to do for my people? Nah, nobody does that. Very few people do the second question. Very few people do that. I ain't got to vote. Fuck this whole shit. It's basically the lazy man's guide to anarchy, right? The thing was is that the way we learned this knowledge is that the father wasn't anarchist. He didn't have an anarchist mindset at all. It's the opposite. You know, he didn't want to burn down societies. He felt that this knowledge of self, though, was righteous and could actually uplift all societies. And whatever was negative in those societies, though, would dissipate. So there could be revolution, massive change. This is what revolution is. But it doesn't necessarily have to be in the westernized mindset. Here's what I mean. What do I mean by westernized mindset of revolution? Revolution in the westernized mindset is what Fidel did. They are doing wrong to us, Fidel's mind. And we're going to take them out and take over. That is a westernized mindset of revolution. You have to physically attack and destroy those in power and seize the means of production. Okay? Father's revolution is very different. It's not going to seize the means of production. It changes the meaning of all the reasons of production. That is the most like philosophical shit I have said ever. No, I'm just kidding. But what I mean is this: the mindset by which people do anything is changed because who you are is known. Who you actually are is known. And why everything is like this is known. And now the mentality of even the means of production changed. So now there's a different change. We say this is knowledge of self. So what happens if everybody is presented this actual knowledge and not in a position where they could just refute it? They have to accept it. Right? And I don't mean accept it by live it out, but they have to accept that it is truth. We're not in that day and time yet, though. Right? But the Father forces a lot of that. You know? It's a different type of revolution. A difficult one to quantify because we don't even know if it completely works. We just know that this truth is right. So we could continue on with this revolution of massive change of a truth that people do not live. Okay? So, right? How is it not living it out? People's words, people's reasons for not doing things, and then they don't think, well, what do I do that is community based, right? Because no matter what anybody says, the one thing that the average person has to say, I do something community based, is always going to be vote. The thing is, though, is that we're looking at voting like presidency. We're not looking at voting like go to the going to your community board and things like that. You see? In every level of government, in every level of political policy, in every level of engagement in the society where people vote to see who will run and guide things, you almost always could denounce it as saying something like, in this particular case, the most popular argument I will not vote for the lesser of two evils. In this democratic concept, this particular form of democracy, I should say, right? Which is based on people representing people, right? And then even so to the point where, like the electoral vote, you vote people that will, you vote people that will promise to vote in a certain way. So it even becomes even more layered. But it's about people's word as bonds, right? When you say the lesser of two evils, it take what it does is basically not really look into the idea that it doesn't matter whoever would be voting, you would be voting for. It could always be in the perspective of lesser of two evils. Do you realize how many topics are? Do you realize how many issues just a small community has to deal with? Do you realize that if you're really engaged, you haven't really studied candidates for anything, even on the most local of levels? Like I'm saying, like uh, if they had votes, if they voted for representatives of a block, you could find uh, massive disagreements though in both of them for just one block, let alone a county, let alone a state, right? Let alone a Congress or a Senate, certainly a presidency. Now, when people talk about lesser of two evils, though, right? The way I see it, right? I've never seen a bigger gap, actually. People see the likeness, though, two old white men and stuff like that, right? But the truth is, for me, I see a bigger gap than I've ever seen before in the nature of voting. Okay, when you vote and you say Biden or Trump is the lesser of two evils, it's not really analyzing the situation. The truth is that the variables of our hells have all remained consistent throughout all these presidencies, including, unfortunately, Obama, right? And we could say that certain things that Obama was going to do didn't even come close to fruition because he wasn't able to implement them, right? So the positive thing, like let's say, like, well, healthcare for all ended up becoming something where we have to pay. We have the right to pay for healthcare, um, which is actually sounds awkward, but in an awkward world, that healthcare actually the product of health care wasn't always available to everyone. That's how low this country is, though, right? Some people had zero box to check, right? So I'm saying that every variable stays consistent, right? Then we could always say we are voting for the lesser of two evils. But here's what people forget about presidencies, though, right? And that's why it's so good to compare Obama and Trump. Such a good comparison. Because when you study Chinese philosophies about humanity and guiding the populace, which is very part of Confucian ethics and morals and peace to God, and you study these things, right? What you find is this: is that there's also another component that people not realizing though when they vote for a president. Okay, that if they're all corrupt and they all keep the status quo, they all keep the prison industrial complex, the biopharmaceutical industry, the colonial status of Puerto Rico, they keep all this shit the same. In fact, in many ways, they each of them would have a hand in worsening it somewhat because even if they kept it the same, it would be worse because it stayed longer, right? That's a lesser of two evils argument. I think what people forget the most, though, is that in the last two presidencies, you actually see something that the other presidencies never gave. That's what we have to analyze here. You see, it's a good question, Abdul. Okay, it's a good question, Abdul. Let me finish this build here, and we'll go into that. All right. Um, the reason I don't see it though, and like one of the reasons I voted already this year, and I intend to vote again. I'm going to vote for president. You know, I'll vote for one of these old crackers. It's not going to be Trump, right? Um, but one of the big reasonings is the Chinese way of looking at things about leadership, and it's something that you should learn about leadership. The presidency or the rulership, right, if we were to use language in the Confucian times, is also a crucial aspect of the leadership. Not just the policies. The policies could be consistently draconian, right? They could be consistently destructive. And the policies that Biden or Trump would be consistently destructive. That's pretty much a guarantee. I'll tell it to you too. Be consistently destructive, right? The difference is, though, is in the power of the nature of the leadership. The ruler guides the nature of the people's mentality, affects the people's mentality. And if they do nothing else, the most immediate thing that they can do, depending on the quality, in some cases, really what we're talking about quality, is the power of their leadership, their decorum, the nature that they have, their the reality that they exude. These are things that people are not taking into account. We could criticize Obama for a long time, though. So there a lot of shit that was devilish, and he continued the natures that he was supposed to. He's the president of the U.S. and he continued this empire. You know what I mean? And willingly so. He won Nobel Peace Prize though while he was bucking, Gaddafi and bucking, Bin Laden. Like who gets a Nobel Peace Prize though when they caught body stuff? It's pretty amazing. And I mean amazing as in comedic, you know what I mean? Almost satirical, you know what I'm saying? Satirical, right? But when you look at Obama, many of the populace though saw the decorum and the nature of a black man. They didn't get to see a civilized black man. And we don't see the generations affected by that because they're still growing up. We don't see the young that grew up with Obama as president just yet. We're getting close to seeing them, right? Since it's about 8, then these 4, that's 12 years, right? We're going to start seeing it soon, right? Very soon. The people that grew up noticing this black man and his articulation, his intelligence, right? His decorum, his nature. In other words, the president is an entire farce, but the leadership, though, is something that affects people. So when people say that their vote doesn't have an effect, it does in this day and time, though. When I'm talking about president as well, because the president is having a massive impact on the daily culture of people's mentalities. See? When we talk about Trump, though, you cannot argue, though, that the things that he has naturally enabled is something that Biden will naturally be able to do and engage. Biden has a long career, though. He said a lot of devilishment. That's a fact. You know what I mean? All that super predator stuff got a little glitched here. All right, there was a glitch though, but what I was saying was that I don't know what got missed though. Let me know if everything is still peace. It's still running. It just told me it lost connection for a little bit. But the reason I think that voting is useful is because in this case has to do with the Confucian way of leaders and the influence of the leader. When people see a leader act a certain way and the people emulate the nature of how that person acts, then that means that the actual ruler is not just ruling by policy, but also ruling by the character that he displays. See? This means that a person like Trump could fail. Let's say, for example, that the entire Congress and House of Reps and Congress, the Senate and everything was all Democratic, and he wasn't really able to pass any of his stuff, and he was so ill-equipped or unable, and worse than he is, and he wasn't able to even strong arm the things that he strong armed. His character still affected people. It still made people, empowered people to act out the devilishment that they act out. You know what I mean? And when you study the history of fascist, the creation of fascist states, they don't come about because of policies that accumulated. They come about also with that particular leader that made it a culture for the people. Very careful with that. So to me, people might disagree. The lesser of two evils argument is irrelevant in this situation because you have an aspect of evil, right? An aspect of evil, right? That one president, that one candidate, in this case Biden, has consistently shown that he doesn't have the gift to even engage in on that level. In this case, though, Trump trumps him. See? Doesn't mean that everything will magically disappear. Things that have already been enabled have been enabled, right? But it doesn't necessarily mean. So, be careful using good sounding arguments not to engage in a society. That's not what the Father taught us, though. He taught us to engage in all the things. You know what I mean? If not to really be an advocate for them, like say I engage and I advocate everybody vote, blah blah. Engage so that you know what it is that you're dealing with. Study all the ciphers, though. Do the knowledge. You know what I mean? All the gods that say that they don't vote, to me, have to be different. They should have all at least voted once. Because they should have at least did the knowledge to the entire process firsthand. It's just the way we do things. Because we're always engaged with the community. See? So we know. Okay. All right. These got some brothers coming in. I gave a whole okay. A lot of sorts here. Okay. one thing about the degree that Abdul Rafi, right? Is that an I? Rafi? Yeah. This mouse is not working so good. Is that in all my research about the actual etymology of Europe, you know, and EU means hillside, right? ROPE is the rope to bind in. EU, I don't find it. You know what I'm saying? The traditional etymology, the history and the study of the root of words of Europe, it comes from broadface, wide. I don't know if that would be hillside, like EU, you know? So it's a little, I don't want to say little, it's a lot of stretch. It's a big stretch. But things like that, you know, they really end up affecting the way that we build, because we often break down words that have no etymological proof and say that's where the word comes from because it's spelled this way. Like, you know, like we say, know the ledge. That's not etymologically sound and stuff. It just breaks down to those two words. So it could or could not be sound. You know what I mean? Nearly 95% of the gods that build and say that, it makes sense to them. It doesn't mean that they actually, you know, did the etymological research of the word ledge, you know, to know that that's exactly why it was placed in there. You know what I'm saying? Right? Even though the etymological root of ledge comes out to, you know, to place, to lay, right? So one has knowledge, they have what? Truths that have been laid, right? So with the play, the word play, I've always seen that degree as more as wordplay, not as proven etymology at all. You know, I don't remember what the Oxford Dictionary says, but I'll check it this weekend. Um, but in the other etymological sources, I never saw EU meaning hillside. You know what I mean? It's the way the build goes. You know what I'm saying? They was being clever because you hillside rope. You know, it sounds more like they were just giving functional cues for you to get it. You know what I mean? But I don't know if that helps to answer the question. It's really just a perfect like wordplay cue in the degree. It's not really like, you know, anything profound like that. You know what I mean? Smells good. You just fin waxing on, about to wax off the ride. That's peace. You know. Yeah, and that's one thing about the degrees and stuff. Like, see how you ask the question? Like, can you show me how EU means hillsides and rope means a rope to bind to besides the culture degree? often our research takes us to try to figure out though how that these things have to have validity, and we just can't find it though. Not necessarily the case, you know. Not necessarily the case, you know. Right? Yeah, and I'm only saying that, Abdul, in the years of my research. You know what I mean? Um, right off the head, though, some of my etymological resources I don't remember, so I'm assuming that it didn't really. I know that if it meant something, there's a high probability it would have caused me to remember. Just been like an alarming cue, like, yo, this really, you know, like when you find something that works. But it didn't. So, but I don't remember exactly. So I will check. But in the general etymological dictionaries that I've encountered, you know, that's not what it means. You know, Europe is a whole word coming from the Latin roots of like wide face or wide, you know, something that means wide. You know what I mean? Like wide. So not necessarily hillside. You know, um, even though hillside, you know, the hillside is the open space, the wide space, but to say rope that it was put together like that, no. You know, what's interesting is that EUR is not seen as a prefix. It's seen as a suffix. In the French, due to the French etymology, like voyeur, entrepreneur, right? The EUR. But EU by itself, very, no, hard to find. Hard to find. You know? So it's interesting. No, very interesting. Right? Mm. What's interesting is that there is a Greek root of the sound EU, and that means good, well, something normal. You know what I mean? So it wouldn't go with binding. You know, So it's totally, it's totally out the box. You know. Definitely just wordplay on that level right there. It's good wordplay though. Damn. That's also why sometimes I don't always do the borning the words together. I don't really do that. Wise Jamel, Remembered Imperfection. He had his mathematical buildup, and he used to always do that and really come out with some great stuff. But as a writer, as an obsessive reader, I don't say obsessive, I would say loving reader. I don't want to think about how much I read, though, is something that's obsessive, though. But the letter U looks like a cave. Yeah, I mean, that works, Kamaslami. It's like Sesame Street and shit, and like words that look like a certain way, because that's a total other science too, how the shape of words changes and stuff like that. And the truth is that the template is very Greek Latin. You know what I mean? So the template of what letters look like, it's not a fluctuating template. You know what I'm saying? There's not enough fluctuation in that. where it fluctuates to particular things. You see? No. Because remember, letters in the alphabet, even if you go back to the Greek alphabet and stuff, they're based on concept, not necessarily like a particular thing. Right? How many things have the letter U in it and everything? Right? So yeah, that would be a reach. You know, it's a good reach though. And I get it, but it'd be a reach. Right? But yeah, it would be a definite reach. You know. LT station, right? Talking. P's got carded potatoes talking into the text. And I didn't know how much longer before this one, so I just press send. I build that all the same way. Oh no, it's all peace, all peace. I teach here from 7 to 10. Okay. Right. Abdul Rafi, I was building on the understanding degree in the 1 to 14, and I seen the poor part as the coast of America, where Columbus was, because that's where he was allowed to set up his trading post and not enter. Interesting. As well as alternate uses of rows when they don't bind as other reach. Yeah, I mean, yeah, 7 there are reaches, you know. It's just not the way the language is composed, you know, like it's not. You know? We'd have more of a play if we would talk about Mandarin or other languages that deal with constant symbols, and words are built up by putting together a vast array of symbols. But the set origins of these 26 letters are pretty much, they're set in like that Greek alphabet, and they have particular reasoning, and you know, they don't really stretch, you know. Like certainly like Mandarin would be a different story, you know? Yeah, so you do a basic search on the letter U. It's really from the Latin, you know. Interesting. It says it comes from the Phoenician letter WAW, right? Wa, by way of the letter Y. See, during the later Middle Ages, Wikipedia says the two forms of V developed, which are both used for its ancestor U and modern V. You know, and right. Interesting stuff, but certainly can't be stretched to a whole degree of particular history, right? Uh, as far as building that, the poor part is the coast of America. I mean, why not all of America, right? Why just the coast? Since you're being particular, right? Why did you see it as the coast? Right? Doesn't have to be just the coast, though. You know what I'm saying? Because the port part is something that you use. There, all the parts are used. They can only be labeled because they're used, right? So that's why you say it's the port because they use the port. But they consistently used all of America, though, so you could say it's the port part. You know what I mean? All of these are based on best part, worst part, poor part. They're all based on relation to everything. Okay, so you can't call something the worst part unless there's something that's better. You know what I mean? And you can't call something the poor part if there's not something that's kind of in the mid. You know what I mean? Kind of mid. Literally. Right? In this case, we know that Europe, though, was consistently the poor part. Right? Not suitable for vegetation, not suitable for anything. Right? And Africa was the best part. But then they find that the poor part was America. Poor part. Poor just doesn't always mean that it's the worst part. Poor doesn't mean that it's not the best part. Poor means that it's not being used per se. You know what I mean? It's the most fluctuating or changing of all of them. So it's how it would be used. I don't know. I think you're being too particular because the women and children were in the interior and that would be the best part. Um, we're talking about cultivation and what people will cultivate in a whole mass, though. So, so who's to say, right? Were they only there? Are we talking about? Are we talking about individual people, groups of people, man, woman, child, or are we talking about all of it though? The whole point that they're there, right? What they will do there. You know what I'm saying? Because in many ways at that time, to say that the wilderness of North America is the poor part leads people to assume that the entire North America, or even all of the Americas, were uncivilized to exceptional degree. Images of Aztecs and stuff, being savage and things like that. But that's not always the case. You know what I mean? The poor part leads a lot to analysis, but it's temporary grade. It's probably the most temporary because out of all of them, they're all of the grades, best part, poor part, worst part, best. We're almost always by bias inclined to say that Africa is the best part, root of civilization. That Europe, where the devil's from, is going to be the worst part. So what would be the poor part? You know what I mean? Doesn't mean that it's poor of land. Doesn't mean it's poor of people, right? Could also have been of poor of historical note, like it wasn't utilized to its fullest extent yet. You know what I mean? Not ready to use, not ready to fulfill certain things, right? That would be fulfilled, right? Be careful how you use the metaphors, right? Because it's talking about a whole landmass. Doesn't mean it always extends to the individuals in the landmass. As if like, women and children are just always in the inland and stuff. Remember North America wasn't, just those edges right there. Whole societies were already going on, right? The poor part just means something that's not being used. You know what I mean? Not used to its full extent. That doesn't mean that necessarily doesn't mean good or bad. See? Just means underutilized. Europe has been used to its full extent, though, and they know that landmass only produces the worst. Well, they were inclined to, at that time, though, that it's producing the worst. I mean, there's nothing in the history of Europe at that time. They had to go get capital, they had to get resources. Literally, Europe had become the worst part. And we're talking about just the landmass thing and the contribution of societies. But the pinnacle of resources from humans all the way down to the land is Africa. Right? Africa. And the thing is that technically, if you really do your research, North, especially South America, but the Americas, there's a lot of wealth there, land-wise. A lot of quality, especially in South America, because we're past the equator. That we're right there with Africa, on that side, on that lower level, close to the equator especially. However, the poor part means that it's not reaching its fullest fruition. Fruition for what? It's history. A lot of worlds manifest. A lot of world can't manifest though if we don't manifest though the actual problem. You can't solve the equation if the equation isn't written out. And the written out equation though is the devil's civilization. Right now we're in the middle of working this equation. And we answer this equation to be stronger, greater than we ever were. It's a lot of work. A lot of work. Right? All right. Yeah, just side note, if you want that health protocol, if you want to ask any questions about it now, I updated it. I tried to make it simpler as opposed to adding all types of stuff like things that I do. Just basic stuff if you started, if it has a real life protocol, but just the mentality, how you would deal with things. What are some immediate supplements you could deal with? You know what I mean? And also make reference or note of the use of this protocol is an internal diet, but also take a note that working on the outer is also part of the goal. Although I always feel that the inner is more immediate and more of immediate need, Right now, though, you deal with the outer, with, it's really about reduction of chemicals, you know what I mean? Main two things are your skin, whatever contacts your skin, and whatever you take in air-wise, right? So in your home environment, that's where you could deal with the air most effectively. Watch the cleaners you use. Try not to use so many chemicals, destructive chemicals. When you have to, make sure you have an air current coming into your home. When you're using ways to cleanse the air in your home or like make it smell fresh, try to use natural oils. I'm always in favor of like diffusing oils. Um, you know, some out here in Harlem, Medina, like everybody always burn oils, but I don't like burning oils for some reason. I feel like it. I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like clogs the room faster as opposed to diffusing. Diffusing, you're pouring the oils into water, and then the diffuser is evaporating that together, and then the oils disperse into the room in a fine mist. And I think that's more palatable to the sensory of the nose. You know what I mean? It could be too. It's too intense. It's too intense to me for a long period of time. And of course, though, the incense, the more natural the incense, the better, obviously. But we're also dealing with this product of smoke, so you don't always want to have that smoke everywhere. You know what I mean? Especially if you got the children and stuff. And if you're dealing with, to me, in the winter months, you want to use less incense, burn less incense sticks because you don't always get to have that current, you know? So that's important to know too, you know? For the skin, though, the most immediate thing is the soaps that we use, you know what I mean? Right? Make sure that the soaps don't have pork, but then on the other level, really the soap that you clean yourself with, really your bath soap is the most important. You want to make sure that hopefully that's a good vegan soap stuff. You know what I mean? Yeah, see, that's what I mean. Yeah, you're exactly right. 793rd. And again, I like I'm used to Harlem and stuff. Like in Medina, you're always smelling burnt oils and stuff. But if you notice that, it always smells best outside but inside a room is what I'm talking about. Your home, it could over penetrate faster. So the diffusing is always the easiest, lightest on the body and stuff. You know what I mean? And if you get into different oils, though, you can use them different purposes. The aromatherapy is real. Do some breathing techniques and meditation, um, doing breath work and taking in the nice smells. It's always alleviating. You know what I mean? So just it doesn't mean that I'm saying that no incense, nothing like that. I love that stuff. You know what I mean? I love that stuff. Just more careful with it. You know what I mean? Even a diffuser, though, if you diffuse two oils too long and you have, it would have the same effect. You know what I mean? Because the thing about the nose is that it's a palate. It's a palate. So just like any other palate that you have, all your senses are palates. So it could be desensitized. You know what I mean? It could be desensitized, and then it ends up hurting the palate. With the nose, though, is that when your nose gets desensitized, though, not only you could lose your sensitivity to negative smells, but you could also you would lose your sensitivity to the positive ones, and it could also overwhelm. So you could end up getting headaches and things like that because you're just overindulged. You know what I mean? Same thing as anything, like whether it's eating, um, whether it's sound, right? We bang out those beats loud, but you gotta lower it a little bit, or you gotta change the style. The type of genre, the means, the instrumentations you're hearing. You know what I mean? You always want to flip it. You always want to diversify your palettes at all times. So, just like anything, mind is like that. Why do you think I make you read? I tell you to read different books and things like that. You know what I'm saying? Always, right? It does clock filters. Yeah, you do notice that stuff. Right? Right? Justice. Jai God. I don't know how to say that. Jai God. G God. Right? I don't know. I don't know how to say that. But peace. Okay. says peace to God. I don't know. There's a lot of gods in the cipher. I don't know. I'm assuming that it's me. I'll take that one there. I hope I'm not stealing it. But appreciate that. There's always, go back and my columns. There's the columns I write for the 5% are about the Peace Course. They're not designed to. How did I pronounce it first? Jai God, Jai. The J. I did the J sound. Right? It's a J sound, not a G. Right? Jai. That's peace. That's peace. Interesting. 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 It's like when brothers make new sounds. I never heard that like that. Jai God. Yeah, got me thinking about that. But yeah, something to think about. You know what I'm saying? Also, too, when a lot of young people though they live with their parents, they live with other relatives and things like that. Or even you're grown, you live with roommates and stuff, and you feel like that air is your space. Like, how dare people engage it? That space of air where you live too, and you have to smell their foods. Just because you're the God doesn't mean that you don't have a roommate that wants to eat some bullshit, or doesn't have to be pork. It could be meat. I mean, to me, all the meats sound funny. And sometimes deplorable. You know what I mean? Hell, I don't even like the smell of vegan cheese. So when you live with anyone else, though, anyone else, right? You can get into the thing of like controlling your air, your cipher, and then you could overdose and the smells and everything. So, it's important though. And that's why I say you sometimes utilize air current. You know what I'm saying? Right? A lot of times instead of like just, throwing every cent that you have out, just, you know, turn on the fan. You know what I mean? It's a window, blow it out. You know what I mean? Jai God means he who manifests the beauty of living a righteous way of life. Is that how you see it? Like you made it to mean that? Like you created that to mean that? Or is that something you read? Just out of curiosity. I'm just curious. I'm thinking alphabet, justice is God. Right? So be, justice. Yeah, but today is very interesting though. I've been riffing here on some abstract, or it just feels abstract, stream of consciousness building, which happens a lot in my classes and stuff, especially I have students I have rapport with. Um, a lot of you here, I know you already, so I do have that feeling of rapport. But I haven't seen any builds on the day's mathematics. Like no one has any wisdom of God. No one knows how the wisdom of God born's born. How the way that you are always born something. You know what I mean? You know what that means, right? The way of you always born something. Always born. So it always leads to born. It means that the wisdom of God is a volatile, extremely volatile equation. Your ways, your, you know, your ways and actions, your wisdom, your speech, you, the speech that most defines you, when it's expressed, always born something. And that means that we are the most volatile thing. And I mean volatile like chemistry, like chemistry, it's a volatile, when kids experiments, volcano or whatever, like you dye it, you dye that vinegar, and then the vinegar reacts with the baking soda. Volatile. Wisdom of God is always born. Something is always fulfilled. You realize how intense that statement is? Do you think in that your way of life, in your daily life, though, you have some type of words that is your own self-styled wisdom, that is you, self-styled wisdom that defines you, is so intense that it would always born something, because wisdom God born. So it always lead to born. You would always fulfill something. Anytime the way of you in any manifestation, wise words, ways, and/or action. So we're the ultimate equation. It's nuts. The ultimate chemistry. Right? The ultimate chemistry. Right? So wisdom God is the ultimate chemistry. Right? Yeah. Sometimes the bill that you have doesn't always have to answer everything. Sometimes you're better off with some question. I would say this though, if I had to grade a classroom, today's class is very quiet. Right? I don't know if you all are very somber, right? You miss the NBA, or I don't know. Jai God, I created it. My righteous name started as I got. I added the J from Jamal, which is my honorable name. It means beauty in Arabic. That's real peace, man. That's really peace, It's real peace. Well, I'm here, Jai God. So if you're in the classroom, if there's anything that you would like to know, anything that you would like to know about me, a lot of people don't ask many questions to me about me to validate me as a teacher of them. It's whatever you want to ask. Mr. G 790 is the ultimate filter, the ultimate machine, the original one. Mr. G1 says, in my side, really with wise you, I built on the principles of mathematics. When I said that, so I'm always applying spirituality to produce and elevate. Okay. Well, mission accomplished, Jagad. Definitely original. Real peace. I always applaud gods that make, make themselves a new name. And speaking of unique names, Ayazid, peace, God. My wise conduct on a daily basis will elevate me to my highest potential in order to bring forth that which is tangible and real in all areas of life. Very true. Very true. I'm glad that people understand this concept of daily basis, though. Daily. They continue daily. We must continue daily, hourly, minutely. I need that up. I don't think that's a word. Minutely, right? I think that One thing I didn't address though in the diet though, which I'm just realizing now is a flaw in my diet protocol, is the idea of fasting and some of my thoughts about fasting. You know, so I'm gonna add those and quickly add those. But you can email me and ask for it. I'll add those quickly. And you know, Saturday is usually the day I write my Peace Course column, and I try to get to emails. It was such a busy Saturday. Um, I think it was just busy because I started to write something. Um, Maybe a feature I was asked, or a column I was, other column I got into, or part of my book. I don't know what it was. It was something, but I didn't get to answer all the emails when I usually do. You know, I think it was just probably right. I remember. No, no, it wasn't. Yeah, I just got into other stuff, but the fasting thing. Um, do we take fasting as some type of monthly thing, as a monthly detox, right? Um, do we do fasting as a weekly thing, as part of the daily life? You know what I mean? So right, or do we fast as soon regularly, but also whenever the instance comes that we feel overload on the body, right? Um, some things to address. I've always been at best kind of a weekly fast. I do uh, a 36-hour fast. You know what I'm saying? Just to calm the body, just to allow the nutrients that I've already dealt with to absorb better. You know what I mean? To be more fluid, right? And it works for me. You know, it's allowed me to, you know, I've actually gained weight and yet kept a lot of the lean look and mass. You know, so it kept a lot of the muscle, nearly all the muscle mass, even as I gain weight, not really gaining fat. You know what I mean? So that's what's important. But yeah, I always like to do it fast, though. Clean out. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So the fasting would just be mentioned, some ideas about it. Do you have right? Yeah, you added that. Do you have a book from the Sharif Bernstein? She was secretary for WD4. No, no, I don't. I don't think I ever looked for that. No, no, I never looked for that. Trying to copy this so I can put that in my notes. Go look for it. Never looked for it, so I don't have it. Right? All right. Let's see. Jeez. Wise you said, oh, okay. Wise you said, study my lessons, wisdom daily. Interesting. Interesting. Is the most important thing. This is cleaning, and where I go, I keep it cleaner than when I came. Like cleanliness is being godliness. 7. And that's how I exist hereafter. Okay. Hmm. Okay, I see it. Jai God said, I see today's math as being mindful that my decisions are just thereby showing, proving self being true in regard to those around me. Okay. Okay. Question for everyone, especially the ones who gave their bills. What is the wisdom of God? Today's math is wisdom God. Like, what is the wisdom of God? What is it? What are those particular things that you could say that absolutely will be the wisdom of God? You have to look at these things from different angles, you know? I appreciate the Al-Yazid. Okay. I wrote down the name and everything, but the book cover definitely helps, you know? Yeah. I had heard about that book, though. Never thought about looking for it. Only, I don't know. I didn't write it down. It was, you know. The wisdom of God, I'm assuming you're answering my question, Abdul. When I show and prove to the 85 that I'm God, what would that be? You know? What would that be? You know? This is where you make these scenarios in your head. You know? You actually construct these scenarios in your head and actually, you know, use them, make them, practice them. You know what I'm saying? I hope that makes sense. What is the wisdom of God? And you decide that that is what the wisdom of God is, then what words would that be? What words would they be? And what words would they always be? What words would they always include, if any? Mr. G1 says supreme intelligence. All right. Jammy Jam, you said, well, one original man made devil. Did he? Did he? Hmm. That's the wisdom of God? Hmm. Jack God says, for me, the wisdom of God is doing right because it is right and not for any other reason. Then the question would be, well, what is right? How do you discern what is right? When we talk about mathematics, how do we discern what is mathematically correct? That smells good. Gives us updates about his car wash. Just throwing that in there as comedically as I could. As he said, proper discernment, speaking based on facts, right? Righteousness, righteous conduct. Think before you act. Okay, I see where you're going with that. Okay, none of this is wrong if you have the right way. So it's the angles. It's, you know. Jagat said the first words that always come to mind is sound judgment, right? Okay. Wise you said showing improvement is a way of God to teach from knowledge and born and to be able to add on to any sermon. Showing and proving, right? Showing is the skill of laying out the importance of things. And then proving is the ability to reveal its worth for an ever consistent reality. It's tough to do. All right. Now that smells good as waxing. In the darkness, wisdom God, they still searching for the way I did it. I don't keep secrets though. Okay. Jaga said, what is right has to be determined by doing the knowledge. Right. So we all get to the conclusion that is based on facts that are being analyzed, right? And yet we live in a world though that deals with morals and ethics though, and they don't always deal with facts though. They deal with the impacts of things. See what I'm saying? The impacts of things. That's why I said that. If you notice what I said the wisdom of God, the way of God, and this bag was supposed to be helping me, just firming up something for my back, and I've had no back support these whole 2 hours. But because I put the bag wrong. But I said the wisdom of God is very volatile because the wisdom of God always reacts, means it always borns, right? So when we look at it like that, right? I'm trying to go back to something that was said here, right? Determined by doing the knowledge, it's always based on facts, but it's the way that they're presented, them, the way that we present them, and the fact that they come from the actual truth. People that teach about us that are it. People that teach about us that are it is the ultimate volatile equation. Okay? The original man is God of the universe. Yakub is an original man. Yakub made devil to show and prove his power. No, I got that, Jamie Jam. No disagreeing with that. I just don't know the context of that. As far as wisdom, God, and the questions I've been asking the last, few minutes, or musing into questions. The outcome to the problem, issue, situation at hand, right way. Mm-hmm. Right? Not the way added with the individual that has all of it. The action and the noun, right? The verb and the noun. Wisdom in God, right? The verb and the noun always borns, right? Always borns reality. Okay. G1 said the ability to actively acquire and apply knowledge to produce a determined idea at a complete and supreme level. Mm-hmm. And of course, though, the homework is to, break that down. Like look at things different ways. Like, what is the supreme level? I know something's a supreme level. Like, how do you know something that you said? We're going through these sciences and we say there's no mystery. We say that we're the original man. We say that we're God. But then how do you know that what you're doing though is a supreme level? How do you test that? Not so easy. I know I'm being a pain in the ass though. 793rd, my actions, ability, word, gesture, reflection of being an Asiatic original man. With the proper knowledge of himself and the ability to impact, produce, transforming change when lacking the absence of. Boy, I gotta see the end of that. That's good stuff. Heavy stuff. Da-da-da-da. Mm-hmm. Okay. Absence of confusion, proper order, as well as unchained thinking. 793rd. I hope that all you students, when you say something like that you cut and paste from there, please. And then you cut and paste though and keep that. Okay. I would hope that the things that you say though, you cut and paste though, and not just remember them as answers to a class though, but something that you're going to continue to expound on in your journals, in your daily life, uh, wherever. It's good stuff. You know what I mean? And that's how you build your builds is in that manner. You know. Jammy Jam. I'm just pointing out that as being one way to show the wisdom of God born, and pondering why Yaku would make that from the original, and then you can't reform those, so you take them all the time. Okay, no, good point. I now that you said that, I understand where you're coming from. Fasting and praying is how it allows us to see the devil together. Okay, right. Well, the degree said fasting and praying. No, obviously we take it to the Muslim might be doing that only, but we're doing other things, right? No, it's good. I'm started to answer your question before you even wrote it. I was wondering about that too. How do you use praying when there's no mystery God? Just because it says this shit don't mean I use it though. I don't pray for shit. You know what I mean? I get lucky enough if I ask my children for something and they'll do it, right? I'm not worried about asking a mystery God. I ask my children to do something, they do it. I'm just happy enough. It's the only people I'm asking for things and hoping and praying that they do it though. But they real people though. I'm not asking nobody else to do this shit. Right? Everybody else though, they on their own. Right? Many people repolarize it, fasting, and I fast and pray, and they go fast and build. Obviously we fast too. We cleanse the body, all that kind of stuff, right? But in the context of fasting and praying, the fasting has kind of like a submissive connotation though to it. Like you're fasting to uh, absolve yourself of impurities because you're impure, and then you pray for salvation. Whereas for us, fasting those to, you know, that also helps you fast more too. When you look at the concept of fasting as basically repowering the body, like um, almost like turning off things that have been on too long, you know, recharging, um, instead of just punishing yourself, right? Side note, that belongs in the category of side notes, but I'm not one of those that really. There are a lot of gods that they'll realign, redefine, recombine uh, the definition of fasting. I think it's all bullshit. I can't. The praying thing is you're asking for something else, though. When people say meditate, though, when they say that, though, it means that they've never meditated in any kind of Eastern mentality. The foundations of Eastern meditation are based on no mind, letting go of, um, not letting thoughts fester, because you can't stop thinking. So when you fast, I mean, excuse me, when you meditate, the thoughts are coming, but you don't allow them to become anything. Like you just let them go. Like you get a thought. I'm just making up something. You get a thought about what you got to do, and now you're not thinking about the actual plan and stuff. You're letting everything go. So you're letting nothing accumulate. That's the root of meditation. So I just can't see when people will say, "Oh, praying, it's just meditation and stuff." Nah, you know, because meditation doesn't mean that you're working things out with yourself either. It's really not that means either. You know? So, right. And then if you said praying, well, it's, I'm God, so I'm talking to myself though. Um, are you begging yourself to do stuff? Are you asking yourself to do stuff? Because then if that was the case and you said that was prayer and it was positive, I would say it doesn't sound that positive. It sounds like you really have difficulty convincing yourself of things. So your internal dialogue is poor, right? Your internal dialogue is poor. So that would be a problem too, right? I'm a hater. 7 9 thirds, so that they could be less susceptible to being fooled by anyone, including themselves, who lack tangible foundation in their beliefs. I mean, 7 9 thirds, like you're usually with the wisecracks. So when you're writing some good stuff, I hope you're keeping that. You know what I mean? I have a whole notebook full of your wisecracks and stuff, and then this stuff you're not keeping. It's good stuff. Very good stuff. Knowing who you be as well as your ability to bring forth that change with your clarity and how you impact through your choices and discernment is the key. Wisdom God brings forth. Born. That's good stuff, man. Right? I wish I had some stickers though. That's a gold sticker right there. Just make sure you copy all that, you know, And Jammy Jam, you said some useful things too. Make sure you copy that. A lot of people take down the understanding of their teachers, their instructors, the elders that they learned from, the books that they learned from, the lectures they're watching, TV shows that might say something insightful. All well and good. It's great. Then they say something really good and you don't memorize it. Your stuff. You don't keep it. So, you know, this is really, I'm very impressed with that. So we got like a little over 20 minutes left. So as I finish certain plus lessons, I want to go back into teaching them and just going in. Um, Again, I said all the emails that I didn't get to answer, I'm definitely going to answer. Um, so we definitely can get into all that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, it's okay to freestyle and wing it and stuff, but also important to write it down. You know what I'm saying? Also important to write it down. But I want you to also look at mathematics, though, to actually see when you deal with today's mathematics. Though, I also want you to look at mathematics to actually build a question, uh, build a challenge of questioning to yourself. And that's why I said I looked at Wisdom Born, and when I built on it, I built on it more of a challenge or an observation that the wisdom of God is always like a volatile chemical reaction. It always borns. It always leads to born, which is really what it's saying. Right? So when you deal with the day's mathematics, so you want to take how you see the day's mathematics, but also continue to challenge it in the situations that you come across, the insights that you come across. They're very, real important. Real important. Can never be understated. Ah, smells good. We have to do. You'll have to do the knowledge then, right? And I'm being more rigorous in finishing the plus lessons. Just that I want to add them up some of these plus lessons, and I'm also thinking about what new ones I can write, what new ones I can come up with to be important, you know, right? Myself, I'm sure you can watch. Okay, that's peace. Yeah, that's why got mm. I never look at something that was written or said that was really great as something lost forever. Um, I always see it more like you could always say it, and you will say it better one day, and it needs to get down. There's that arrogance that I have as a writer that I just won't allow the fact that I could lose something that was so valuable, you know, that it has to be refound, that it just couldn't get lost. You know what I mean? It would be made manifest again in a greater way. So, if you have that mentality, help you forget about the loss, right? And as always, though, since we would talk about revolution, though, right? Um, Remember I was talking about controlling your air and controlling your reality? All of us, though, should be training in some kind of physical way, ideally some type of martial art, but not just the fight, and the occasion of fighting or the expectation of fighting. You know what I'm saying? But in the power of controlling the way that we handle something, you know, um, how would we handle these situations? Right? See, like from a martial standpoint, we know that from a human standpoint, for example, Jacob Blake was dealt with inhumanely, right? But from a warrior standpoint, we know that we expect to be treated inhumanely. See what I'm saying? And so why we wouldn't guide the enemy toward what? We would never guide the enemy toward the best part. So you see, if I was dealing with police, and whether they had their guns out or not, and I was gonna make a decision that possibly the police would disagree with, that decision would never entail me going towards my children, right? So the thing is, though, is that one of the things that we have to say is like just on this soldiering reality, this hell that we're in, is that a lot of the encounters with police, we're looking at them as citizen encounters when we should be looking at them as war encounters. It's war encounters. Potential enemy. A lot of people look at that as like, oh, well, you're just trying to kill the police and do this and that. It's not what I'm saying, though. In other words, you have to assume, though, that you are a combatant at every turn. So how best would you engage them, right? How clever would you be? How intelligent would you be, right? All of these things come into play. You know what I'm saying? Right? Have a swift wisdom, right? If you know that it's gonna, let's be honest, if you know that it's gonna be your time, it's gonna reach the highest pinnacle, what would you do? Right? Certainly wouldn't walk back to where your children were, right? See? So that's the biggest mistake that I think of, right? You would take your loved ones out of the equation, right? So you wouldn't have gone back to the car. If they were pointing guns at you, you'd have had them pointed to where all of their fire, I mean, horribly, would be in the visuals of the children, maybe, but they wouldn't be in line with the children. That's the first things I think about. You know what I mean? And you can't ask people, regular people, to know how to deal with that situation. And of course, we weren't there. We don't know all the ramifications, though. You know what I mean? Like, we don't even know if they had even told him anything. Like, who knows that they were even saying something to him at that time? We heard a lot of stuff, but we didn't hear anything from them. Who knows? Man? Well, 793rd, as far as that, like, we're all creators, right? So all of us have to spend time in figuring out, though, how do we get into what particular zone? And that's why all of us though, whether your vocation is not, we all should engage in something creative, even if it goes nowhere. You know, even if it goes nowhere. There are more than one musical instrument that I practice and try to learn as an autodidact, just for the exercise of it. Whether I'll be able to reach a level where I could compose or write songs, or any of these high lofty goals, um, technically will be irrelevant to it. But just to engage in creating, or in the process of learning creating, then you also learn how to get into what would be a zone, or know that you have it here and not there. So uh, what type of creative efforts do we get into? Like, how do we master getting into the zone? You know what I mean? I have a lot of answers to that, though. Mhm. Personally. Hmm. Interesting. Google war history. Okay. 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 I see you, LT. Right. The martial training, though, is to make you faster with your body. The faster that your physical reacts to things means that the brain and the body are not going to be a hindrance to your mind's working. So everything you think, that processing will engage into the entire body immediately. That's really the martial training. It could be a lot of other things, but it's really that. It's really that. You know, right? Part of the martial way, though, is how to diffuse a situation. We have to learn that. We have to learn that. You know, and that's why there's inconsistency too. Man is trying to stop a negative situation, and then he ends up in a negative situation. Just the irony of fate. It often seems like, but it's really an inconsistency of ability. And if you think not, then you're also very fatalist. Then there is nothing you can do, right? Yeah, so we have a couple of minutes left here. If anybody has any questions about anything, I think I've said a lot of things in tonight's session that I said this to an individual that means a lot to me, right? That um, that means to say that that person means a lot to me is understating it. But just to keep it generic, um, the way I was taught from the elders, right, and the way I was taught, because one of the reasons you get to learn from me is because I had a lot of mentors in this nation and even beyond this nation. That's my history. I have a lot of history with mentorship. I've been mentored a lot. A lot of great elders have taught me. But a lot of great elders, they teach you about things that you haven't lived. And when you learn, you don't really know anything. And you're never going to be a great apprentice if you don't realize that you really don't know shit. If you become a better student, it just means that you're becoming good at things. Doesn't mean that you know shit compared to them. See? So it means that you're quiet around them. But it also means, though, right, that you constantly do the knowledge. And if you validated that teacher already and you respect that teacher, then that means that you take what they've given you and you learn to hold it. See? Been kind of two situations recently, right? And individuals, they either said that they wouldn't hold it because it goes against their views at that current moment, right? Which means that they can't be challenged on their views, okay? But also said that they wouldn't take the best part from people if that particular individual already proved that there were certain things that they were wrong about. And if those wrong things bothered that person enough, they wouldn't take anything that they said, even if some of it was right. They just wouldn't bother. There's great flaw in that. There's great flaw in that. The more of humanity that you witness, um, the more research you do, the more things that you learn, the more that you realize that um, you gotta take the best part. You have to know how to take the best part from the worst part. And just like that whole lesser of two evils thing, in this case, though, like just like what I said, you would think that by doing that, by exiling somebody, oh, they're not really right about this, so I'm not going to learn anything from them, that you're exiling lesser of two evils. You're not dealing with the lesser of two evils. You're too, you're right and exact. You don't deal with lesser of two evils. But the truth is, that's not the life that we, you know, of the devil's civilization for sure. The truth is that we've learned constantly of the lesser of two evils. Okay? If I have white teachers, though, you think you're not in a white country, though, you're in a white world. You're in Africa, you're in Latin America, you're in a world that is manifesto through the Western world. Lesser of two evils, though, is the way of life. So a lot of times I hear a lot of justifications, though, for just a refusal to be challenged. It's a cycle that has to be broken. So when you deal with supreme math and you deal with these lessons, understand that that's a challenge. You have to challenge yourself to look at things from a perspective and do exercises that you normally wouldn't do. See? Because the truth is that whatever it is that you have to bring out of yourself, educate, educaris, talking about the Latin roots and etymology, to draw out that which is within. Well, if you're always God, and somebody like me said, hey, you're the true and living God, here's some proof, then all I did was help you educate yourself. Help you educate yourself. I did not educate you. I have taught you things, but you will be educating yourself. You will be drawing out that which is within, not me. Right? So, comes Lami is explain to me that fasting and praying is building and adding on. But those words don't mean that, right? So someone reversed the polarity and they said this means this, right? Someone told you an interpretation. Doesn't mean that. Talk to an NOI in a Muslim in the NOI and they'll tell you damn well means fasting and praying. Yeah, I fast, and while I'm fasting, I'm praying that all these devils get burnt to a crisp. Right? Right, so 792 says sounding like your educator. I don't know what educator you're talking about. I've had a lot of them, right? A lot of great ones. You know? But when, as an immediate, a lot of the things that the teachers that you validate, and once you validate them, you have to hold lessons that make no sense. Do things that make no sense. See that a lot though. Good example is always in the martial world. Have you move in certain ways, poses, stances, exercises. You have no idea. You know what I mean? Right? So, but it has a fruition to it. So that's the thing. Right? Yeah. See, LT, you said the Kam Islami. I've heard that too. Is that how you see it? You'll always have heard that, right? Uh, Intonation, second, firstborn prince. Oh, yeah. So it's for impact, effect. Yeah, I guess all of us have. That was with firstborn prince. We got a little bit of that in there, right? I got a lot of, you know, I got a little of all the great elders that taught me and stuff, a little bit. Some of it I notice, some of it I don't, some of it I deliberately, right? That's that's pretty cool. Right? Mm. So with that said, unless anybody has any questions, though, we're at 10 o'clock. Though I'm gonna let you all brothers go. And if any sisters are in the cipher, I didn't see McDonald's born, so but definitely email Sunez97 at Gmail. Go to the 5% 5%media.com. Anything that you need, just ask me. You know what I mean? Um, I get to everything. All right. And we'll build. Okay. And the references, the tools, the resources that you need, though, we'll build. Okay. So with that said, to everyone, peace and absolute honor. And in the night of understated moments, understand that when I say it's an absolute honor, that is an absolute understatement. To be able to teach this knowledge of self to anyone willing to listen. All right. Peace.